Professor Azad Khan, as we were earlier discussing, and Professor Azadi alluded to that this is an election year in Iran, the geopolitical situation, as well as even as far away as America and the new president there, are going to play a huge role when Iranians decide how to cast their ballot. Now, we do see this huge presence of the people on the streets right now. How do you think this is going to affect the momentum come the election?
Well, it depends, Candice, what happens between now and when the Iranian elections take place. If President Trump continues with his reckless and his thoughtless and his undiplomatic gesture, the Iranians are going to not only back the revolution, which they have been for 38 years, at least the ones within Iran, those of us outside of Iran who believe in the Iranian revolution, but it's going to solidify the position of whoever will be running for office. Obviously, Mr. Rouhani is going to run for a second term. We don't know who our traditionalist friends are going to propose, but whoever it is, I think there will be, thanks to Trump, again, this is so ironic, we're going to have this unity of the message, or what the founder of the Islamic Revolution called Wahdat Kalameh in Persian, the unity of thought, the unity of message, the unity of purpose. Thanks to Mr. Trump, ironically, I think we're going to actually achieve that. Another thing that's going to give the Iranians an edge would be Mr. Trump's adamant rejection and alienation, and how he calls the JCPOA the world's worst deal in history. You know, extreme statements like that are not based on any factual evidence. Whereas the fact that Mr. Trump and his administration want to back out of that is going to show that Washington does not follow through his promises, that Washington reneges. And this now, for the first time, I think, in a long time, we are seeing a unity of thought and message that you really can't trust those corrosive elements in Washington. Their contracts means nothing, even when it's a multilateral agreement between not just Washington and Tehran, but Washington and 5 other superpowers. So I think it's going to solidify the Iranian position, and I think it's going to bring the people together, like perhaps no other time than the Sacred Defense in 1980 to 1988 against the Saddam Hussein-imposed war and the revolution itself. So ironically, the Iranians are going to win.
Well, do you agree with that assessment, Professor Azadi, considering, let's not forget that time and again it has been said that any vote cast during elections in Iran, no matter for which candidate, is a vote for the Islamic system of governance?
Yes, you know, when we get closer to elections, you have all these media outlets, Farsi-speaking media outlets, generally they broadcast from the United States, some from Europe, that ask people not to go to the polls. And when people go to the polls, they are choosing a candidate that they like. They're also indirectly saying that they accept the system that is presenting them with the choices that they have, and they're accepting the system integrity in terms of counting the votes, and they think their vote actually matters. Otherwise, why would they want to wait in long lines when the election day comes? Overall, the messages that we have been getting from outside, whether it's from the U.S. government or outlets that are connected with the U.S. government, has actually been helpful, because this is a characteristic of Iranians, that when they're told not to do something, they actually manage to do the opposite. And so we encourage Mr. Trump to be more helpful than what he has been so far. He has been helpful somewhat, but we want him to be more helpful, and actually very close to the election ask people not to go to vote, because that would be a big help.
Right, Mr. Shajare, your opinion on this as well, Wayne, if you like, as far as the elections go. A lot has happened since the previous presidential election in Iran. We have the JCPOA, a belligerent government in power in the U.S. against Iran. And of course, let's not forget the situation in Syria, in Yemen, in Iraq, etc., when it comes to Daesh, when it comes to the Saudi involvement.
Well, I think actually this sort of re-emphasizes the aspect of the revolution and revolutionary mind. We need to struggle against injustice. We know, both from our experience and also our concept belief in Islam, that the struggle goes on, you know, and the only important thing is actually, are you going to be part of that struggle, standing for what is right, and standing for those who are oppressed, and standing for the independent and indeed empowerment of the people. And Islamic Iran and Islamic Revolution has done that for the last 38 years, and it's been extremely successful. Now, you know, on the other side, looking at the sort of opponent of Islamic Revolution under the hegemony of United States, we see that that is also extremely exposed now with Trump. While Obama was involved in killing hundreds of thousands and millions of people with drones and other sort of weapons, and but he was able to actually put a very nice charismatic smile and try to justify it for peace of the world. Now we see that the system, this abusive system of United States, this colonial power, is now exposed. Its face is exposed. The fact that, you know, people in United States overwhelmingly went and sort of elected someone like Trump, who stands for conflict, it stands for racism, it stands for division, it stands for all sorts of things, which is against the whole concept of humanity.
Indeed.
And the way that he's been talking is actually, it speaks volume. And in anything, if anything, it actually clears these boundaries and clears the mind of those who want to stand up for something much better than what Mr. Trump is standing for.
Right, now that we're on the topic of Trump, Professor Izzadi, when you take a more holistic view of the revolution since its onset to today, we've always seen the great Satan as it was presented, the U.S. Then there's also the talk of Israel. Does this movement, this revolution, require an outside enemy for its survival?
I don't think so, because the revolution happened because people were oppressed, and the person that was oppressing them was actually an Iranian guy named Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. So this is why you had a revolution. The people wanted an Islamic form of government because majority of people in Iran are Muslims, and he was following something else. The reason Iranians called United States the Great Satan was because the United States, instead of taking this opportunity and correcting some of its past mistakes, i.e. the 1953 coup d'etat, they decided to stick with the Shah until the last minute, and after the new government came in, they decided to fight the new government in any way they could, and they have continued doing that for the last 38 years. That's what their Great Satan. And so we didn't look for an outside enemy. The outside enemy came to us. And as I said earlier, they have an opportunity to, even today, correct that mistake. But given the arrogance that you have in the United States, and especially with the guys that are gaining power there, I don't think that will happen anytime soon.
All right, these rallies are as much a reformation of the ideals of the Islamic Revolution as they are a message to Donald Trump right now. Let's cross back to Mahtab and see what is going on the streets of Tehran. Mahtab.